Hello, greetings. My name is Min Liu. I'm a professor of health communication at Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville.
Hello, everyone. Sorry we could not be there. My name is Singaravelu, and I'm a professor of clinical mental health counseling in the Department of Professional Counseling at Webster University, also located in St. Louis.
And we hope you're all having a great conference at the World Communication Association so far. As Hemla said, we really regret not being able to join you in person. However, we greatly appreciate the conference planners for giving us the opportunity to share our work with you virtually this way. As you can see, this presentation discusses our work in mental health education and advocacy among the St. Louis area Asian Americans. St. Louis, for those of you who don't know about our city, is a mid-sized metro area. We do have the largest Asian American population in the state of Missouri. Here we've included our contact info. Since we're not able to be there to answer questions, please feel free to jot down our contact info. We would love to receive feedback or notes from you all. About our work, if you are interested in learning more, as you can see, we are a St. Louis-based Asian American mental health community kind of initiative with a focus on education, raising awareness, and hopefully eventually changing behaviors. So you can learn more by following our social media as well. And a little bit about what's been supporting our work. In 2021, we were among the first batch of grassroots organization to receive this grassroots funding from the St. Louis County's Children's Service Fund. This first 2 years of funding allowed us to pilot test some of the ideas we had. And then, of course, in 2023, we were able to apply again, and then we were chosen to receive funding again. So this allowed us to continue to develop our programming and expand our partnerships. And now Hemla is going to take over and talk a little bit about the need that drove our work.
Right. And, the main reason what inspired us to take on this project and some of the programs that has been put forth the last 3 years is because of the state of mental health among Asian American Pacific Islanders in the nation, and particularly in Missouri as well. More and more mental ill health and wellness is never addressed or discussed. Suicide rate has increased, and currently it is the leading cause. Suicide is the leading cause of death among Asian Americans aged 20 to 24, accounting for nearly 1/3 of deaths in this group. This rate is disproportionately high compared to other ethnic groups and highlights the urgent need to address mental health within our communities. COVID-19 has affected a lot of us, and within the AAPI community, the experience with the pandemic and the associated rise in anti-Asian hate crimes only made things worse, intensifying anxiety, depression, and trauma. But it is important to recognize that this mental health crisis began long before the pandemic. It is rooted in racism, discrimination, and acculturation stress or acculturative stress. Let's talk about some of the key challenges that AAPI individuals face when it comes to mental health. Stigma being one of the huge ones, and some of you are quite familiar with that. In many Asian cultures, mental health and mental illness is heavily stigmatized. It is often viewed as a personal weakness or a source of shame for the family. It's a strong cultural emphasis. There is a strong cultural emphasis on saving face, maintaining harmony, and avoiding confrontation. This can lead individuals to hide emotional struggles and suffer in silence, feeling isolated and alone. The other struggle can be cultural barriers. For new immigrants, especially, or first-generation individuals with limited English proficiency, it can make it difficult to communicate mental health needs to healthcare providers. This can also lead to misdiagnosis or inadequate treatment and contributes to the underuse of mental health services in our communities. The other challenge is basically the cultural differences and cultural pressures that are unique to our Asian culture. So many Asian American Pacific Islanders culture are rooted in collectivism, which, as you know, prioritizes family and community over the individual. While this can foster strong support networks, it can also create pressure to conform and suppress personal struggles to avoid burdening others. So speaking up about mental health may come across as being selfish or even disloyal. Another challenge is the experience of history, the historical and intergenerational transmission of trauma, war, colonization, forced migration, discrimination, the partition in India, for example, have left a lasting emotional scars across generations. These traumas are often manifest as depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and they are passed down from one generation to another through families, and even when they are not openly discussed. They are non-consciously transmitted through speech and behavior. The model minority myth. This is a stereotype. The stereotype of the model minority that all AAPI individuals face regarding being academically successful and emotionally resilient can be incredibly harmful. It dismisses real struggles and isolates those who don't fit the mold, making it harder for them to ask for help. High expectations and bicultural stress is another barrier. Parental pressure to succeed academically and professionally is intense. On top of that, many second-generation children must navigate biculturalism, balancing the values of their cultural heritage, values, beliefs, and communication styles, you know, collectivism, at home with Western norms that they experience in school and in society, which tends to be more individualistic in its goal and expressions. Navigating this dual identity can be exhausting and many times confusing. When all of these pressures build up, individuals may reach a crisis point where normal coping mechanisms no longer work. At this point, some may begin to consider suicide, not because they don't have support, but because they feel overwhelmed, alone, and unable to express their pain. Going back to our work, so what have we been doing thus far?
Thank you, Hamlet. So before we go into kind of discussing the specific program strategies, what worked, I want to just briefly mention this asset-based community development model that we believe were a good fit for informing our concept development, but also the grant writing process. This was developed in the 1990s as more of a social work theory. The model focuses on empowering communities to drive their own development from an inside-out kind of approach. One unique feature of this model is that it emphasizing existing assets, skills, capacities, rather than focusing on needs, deficiency, and problems. Both of us, as we mentioned, were fairly established members within the St. Louis area Asian communities. And then with our backgrounds in health communication, in professional counseling, we feel that we understood the untapped community resources and strengths that would be very powerful and beneficial when it comes to improving mental health outcomes. So we want to highlight three components of this model in particular that were really relevant and incorporated into our work: relationship building, community empowerment, and community resource mapping. So as Hemla mentioned, one of the main program strategies that we had has been the listening circle. So here we included a flyer and some photos. This is a strategy that we use for community education. So for this, we partner with trusted community organizations, and they last about 90 minutes in each session. Of course, they almost always go over. Hemla is our main facilitator for this session. So when she gets these programs going, the focus is on dialoguing directly with these parents, adults, with a focus on mental health and youth mental health in particular. So over the years, we've partnered with a lot of faith-based organizations, language schools, and culture centers. Korean, I think Chinese, Taiwanese, Indian, Pakistani, and Vietnamese communities as well. So Hamla and her team of youth advocates who we'll talk about later, they bring the facts, they bring resources and guides, and then we encourage the parents and the participants to bring questions and bring ideas, which they do. This is one of the more requested sessions for our program. We oftentimes get asked, when are you bringing this program back again? So the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So a lot of parents, even though they might be highly educated or very well established professionals, they often tell us that this is the first time for them to participate in an open and public dialogue about mental health. So that's, something to be thinking about. And with our another program component is the annual AAPI Mental Health Summit as part of our funded program. So this allows us to bring together academic partners, service providers, community leaders, opinion leaders. For instance, last year for 2 years, we brought in documentary producers who've actually created short films about mental health among AAPI communities. And the idea is to have a focused dialogue with an intentional focus on our region, because we know that our region differs from bigger cities or the coastal areas. So this year in September we will be having our third annual summit. Hemla and I probably remember our favorite moments from our previous summits, but one of my favorite moments was when we put together different community leaders, including a Buddhist organization, a Hindu culture center, a Pan-Asian organization. And the idea was to join a panel discussion to share what they see in their community, in their organizations, and strategies that they've found to be helpful. So I think this eventually create some very organic dialogues where people are mapping out our community resources and exchanging ideas about what might be available, what could be created in terms of collaborative programs. I think that's one of the best takeaways from the summit. And then I think I would say probably Hemla and I both agree that the youth mental health advocates are probably our best weapon or best secrets. So this is where we bring together, 8 with funding, hopefully for in the future years as well. But we bring together 8 high school students in our community with a, clearly articulated interest in educating the community about mental health. So we put them through a kind of a training program, so they become educated about Asian American mental health statistics and facts, risk factors, protective factors, and then we send them out to be Hamla's best partners in listening circles, to go and speak to mental health summits. We have another program where we bring tabling services to different community festivals, and these advocates help us staff those tables so that they can talk directly about their peers at these events. And another really important kind of outcome from this program is that oftentimes these advocates go on and they want to continue to actually develop a career in mental health or in medicines, which I think is really wonderful. At least one of the students in this picture here actually created their own mental health club in their high school. All of those are really exciting kind of success stories for the two of us. So, Hemla, off you go with the discussion of challenges and lessons learned.
Sure. I think one thing I wanted to add is the listening circles and the mental health summits. It helps to demystify mental health and break down stigma associated with mental ill health and creates a safe space for people to share their experiences without judgment. Now, in terms of some of the challenges, one of the things that we have noticed, I'm not sure about your communities, but certainly in Missouri and St. Louis, the Asian umbrella is an umbrella, identifier for so many Asian subgroups. And we tend to be siloed. We all have doing our own thing and hidden from each other at times. So the siloing impact tends to separate us, which really works against our intent and to bring the community together in order to tackle this issue of mental health and wellness. Trust building and behavior change. What that means is that, we've seen uh, changes, improvements from our summits, and we've done two circles of listening circles, and this September, we will have our third summit, and we've seen an increased openness and awareness and embracing of even discussing mental health and seeking out counseling, for example. The pushback, some people tend to recoil when we talk about, certain topics and subgroups like the LGBT plus community, while they may have their own struggles around that within their own family, again, they're not comfortable talking about it or addressing it. And so many stories are left untouched where that's concerned. So some of the pushback, and that sometimes affects our planning as well. So moving forward, I think going back to the asset-based community model, a lot of what we've done, we've seen that we have built the relationship, and there have been community empowerment. One good example is the South Asian community. They actually reached out to us saying that, hey, we want to do the exact same thing as what you all are doing with regard to the summit. And my first response to that was, great, yes, but we're already doing it. And why don't we work together and to stop this siloing effect? We need all of us to be able to address these mental health issues, to address a lot of our challenges as a community in order for us to move forward in a healthy way. So, so in our meeting for the third mental health summit, we have this South Asian group joining us in our discussion and planning. So yeah, so it's good. On one end, it's good. At the same time, it can be a cumbersome process. So we are learning, along the way.
Absolutely. And all in all, I would just want to add one symbolic kind of goal that I have. I mean, 98A, for instance, in the United States is one of those lines that people can call for getting connected to trained professionals when they're experiencing mental health crises, and we were able to actually get 988 posters that are in different languages. So it's been my personal goal, for instance, to actually get some of those 988 posters into those community buildings. Even though we've been partnering with them for quite a long time, somehow, when you ask them to put a poster about 988 because it may have the word suicide or self-harm on it, I have not had any success. So that's just another example of how trust building and behavior change can still